Hello there everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan, so happy to be with you again today. Today we're going to be continuing our journey through the Advent calendar from Flaviar this year. Did the one last year, it was a lot of fun. Some of those samples that I got to try were really good, some of them were really bad, and most of them fell somewhere in between. But it's a really great way to refine your palate and start tasting things from all over the world and understand how different people are approaching the craft of making whiskey. So I already did the first two samples out of this box in a previous video. Today we're going to do the next two. The first two were not impressive to me, if you watched that video. So hopefully, maybe this box can redeem itself with the next two samples today. By the way, if you want one of these, I'm not sure if they're still available or not. I want to say they still have more of these left to sell. So if that's the case, I'll put a link in the description to this as well as my discount code. That way you can actually see if you can pick one of these up and then get a significant discount off of them using my code. Sound good? Let's dive in. So I have not read ahead, so I don't know what two we're doing today, but I'm about to find out. All right. Vial number 3. It says product of the USA. It is 50% alcohol, aka 100 proof. So maybe this is like a bottled in bond product. Let's check the notebook and see. Number 3, Uncle Nearest. Okay, yeah, not a strange name, something we're fairly familiar with. So this is 1856 premium aged whiskey, 50% alcohol by volume. Boom. That one right there. Okay, so this is Uncle Nearest. This bottle, it looks like it retails for 52 bucks. Category, it's a Tennessee whiskey. Tennessee aged whiskey. Kind of an interesting story here, right? So this is what the about section of this whiskey reads. I think this is interesting. It says, as one story goes, sometime in the 1950s, a young Jack Daniel went to work for a local preacher named Dan Call. Dan, who owned a small distillery as a side gig, was the supposed mentor that passed all the ins and outs of whiskey making to Jack. But the official story is, as per usual, a little different. The man doing the distilling and the knowledge passing was actually an African-American slave named Nathan Green. To all the people near and dear to him, he was also known as Uncle Nearest. He was the one who taught young Jack the charcoal filtering process now used to make most of the Tennessee whiskey. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's still a good story. One thing that I have learned in the whiskey world is that a lot of brands like to tell stories. It gives people a little bit more of a connection to their product. That being said, I have also realized, as I've done a lot of whiskey historian reading, which is a hobby of mine, I have learned that a lot of them are not true. They're either like hyperbolic exaggerations of the truth, or they're completely manufactured, you know what I mean, stories. So, I haven't fact-checked that, so I don't know if that's true, but it's a good story either way. Maybe I should look that up later and follow up on it. But here we go. Let's dive into this Tennessee whiskey from Uncle Nearest. There she be. Nice sort of golden color on that. Looks like not a light beer, but almost like the color you'd get on something like an IPA. Not a hazy one, obviously. On the nose, I'm getting like a campfire and sweet peach. Yeah. Like charred embers in a campfire. A little bit of sweet peach, a little bit of powdered sugar. Let's try it. That's interesting. That sweet peach note I was really hoping would be like front and center on this one. But that doesn't come back around after the nose. It doesn't come back around until like way into the finish. As the spice starts to taper off, that peach comes forward for just a little bit. But by that point, a lot of it is sort of watered down that late in the finish. Right up front on the palate, I get a lot of black peppercorn, some spice, a little bit of mint. That campfire note is right on the tail end of the palate. And like I said, the very end of the finish, a little bit of that sweet peach. All in all, I can say I don't think I'm very fond of this. I don't think I would buy a bottle of this. But it's a good practice to sort of try to isolate flavors and train your palate a little bit more to differentiate between different parts of the sip. Huh. Yeah, it's lacking in the flavor department. I really want it to bring some of the... As a Tennessee whiskey, I want some of that sweet caramely corn in there. And I want more of that campfire smoke too. It just sort of falls flat. Okay, so per my scale, I'm going to give the Uncle Nearest 1856 Premium Aged Tennessee Whiskey. I'm going to give it a 4.2. I really wish the palate and the finish had picked up more on those notes, delivered more of those notes that we got on the nose. I think the nose was way better than the actual sip. I'm not going to turn that page just yet because I don't want to reveal too early what the next one is. Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to finish that. All right, number 4. Product of Australia. So, before I crack this open, let me make some predictions. This is probably going to be pretty young. Well, depending on where in Australia it was made, but a lot of the Australian distilleries, they have this challenge where because of the climate, their whiskey ages in those barrels so freaking fast. Like they just do not, they don't have the luxury of letting it sit in the barrel for 6 years, you know what I mean? Because by then, it's going to be really bitter, syrupy, thick, and they can't really afford to take that kind of loss on their product. So let's flip the page and find out what it is. This is Starward. Starward, Solera Australian Single Malt. Okay, so Australian Single Malt, Solera. Let's unpack some of those words. So single malt, per regulations, needs to be made in one distillery in one season. So all the juice in here needs to have been distilled by the same distillery within the same distilling season. And it's all malted barley. And then the word Solera, what's that mean? Solera is a style of aging, so I'm not honestly too surprised that Australian distillers are trying to implement the Solera process, because you basically, with the Solera process, what you do is you take a barrel, you fill it with your distillate, and now you have a barrel that's full of your booze. Now what you do is you drain, let's say, 20% of it. So now it's 80% full. You just took 20% of the whiskey out. Now what you're going to do is take brand new distillate right off the still, and you're going to fill that space that you just created on top of the barrel. You're going to fill that 20% back up with new distillate. So now your barrel is 80% old distillate, 20% new distillate. Now again, you're going to do another run off your still, and you're going to drain another 20% of that barrel, and all that stuff's mixed up. So now you refill it again back up to full. So that's the Solera process. You're like draining the barrel and refilling it as you go. So within that barrel, you probably have distillate from several different runs off your still. So that's the Solera process. Let's try it. First things first, let's scan the QR code here. Starward retails for $64. New World Whiskey Distillery, Australian single malt, 43% ABV, which is 86 proof. A delightful Australian single malt in the sherried Highland style. Oh, nice. David Vitale left the corporate training software market in 2007 to launch his vision for a uniquely Australian whiskey, New World Whiskey Distillery in Melbourne. There you go. Now we know where they're at. Shortly thereafter, he developed his first brand to fulfill that mission. He named that brand Starward. Early stage funding for the project came from Diageo's in-house funding division, Distill Ventures. So that's kind of cool that Diageo would have funded that. Kind of cool. Built their own production distillery in 2016, located in an old airplane hangar. That's kind of cool. Made from 100% Australian malted barley that's been fermented with brewer's yeast and double distilled. It's aged exclusively in resized Apera casks using the Solera aging technique, which I just described for you. When we first sipped it, the aroma and flavor profile made us think of the Balvenie Double Wood Series. I got a bottle of that back there, actually. Bready note to the aroma. Okay, well, let's try it. On the nose, I get milk chocolates, like Hershey's Kisses, dates and figs, those dried dark fruits. Maybe a little bit of like a trail mix vibe, too. Let's try it. That's not bad. I like what I'm getting up front. A lot of that Raisin Bran cereal kind of a vibe. And that trail mix, those dried fruits and nuts in there. Like those little slivered almonds. I don't get a lot of those chocolate notes on the actual palate, but the finish, it doesn't last very long, but it's all raisin. Just tastes like those little boxes of raisins we'd have to snack on as kids. That's the finish. It's all raisin. Yeah, that's not bad. It does taste fairly young. Like sometimes, especially with a single malt, over time you're going to get a lot more of those nice savory bready notes, and more of those chocolates come out. This one is a lot of fruit and some young wood in there. I think per my scale, 5.6. I get a 5.6. What's there, I like, but I'm missing what's not there. It's missing some of those more matured barley notes. And again, this probably has a lot to do with the climate there in Australia and just how long they are able to age things. But given the choice between the two, I would take that over that Uncle Nearest 10 out of 10 times. So this is what I'm talking about. This is why I appreciate this, because as an experience, great way to train your palate. Great way to flex your muscles when it comes to tasting and widen your understanding of different flavor profiles that are created from all kinds of different places around the world. We've had Tennessee whiskey, we've had Australian single malt, we've had Irish, we've had rye. So already in the first 4, there's not a lot of overlap there in terms of flavor profiles. That's what I appreciate about it. Thanks for tuning into the video today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hey, big shout out to my Patreon supporters. If you ever want to get involved on the Patreon, feel free to check the link in the description. Also, we have a Discord, totally free to join. You can hop in there, talk whiskey with us. We'd love to see you there sometime. Also, the link to that in the description. Cheers! May you live richly and get better with age. And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.